everyone. I decided to do my assessing student learning assignment on phonics. I focused on phonics. I have kindergarten age students. The reason why I decided to focus on phonics for this group of students is because of the RAPS 360 data that I received on my students. The RAPS 360 is the benchmark assessment that my district uses, and the results were all of this in this pie graph here. All of this dark color here is the critical area. So the majority of my students were in the critical area. Actually, 16 out of 20 of my students when I first started this were in the critical area, and then the other 4 were in the approaching. So nobody was meeting expectations, no one was exceeding expectations, and that really bothered me. So I decided to focus on phonics. Phonics, the way that phonics is assessed according to the RAPS 360 is on an iPad. The iPad looks like this. I took a screenshot of this so that I could have it for students so we can practice. But it looks like this. There's this woman, and she will say a sound like D, and then the students have to look at the keyboard and then touch D, and then they click next. And that's the first part. First they go over just initial or just single sounds, and then they'll move to blends and digraphs as the students are answering correctly. It gets a little bit harder and harder. So I wanted my students to be able to do this effectively, which brings me to my student-centered learning goal, which was students will be able to recognize short vowels and consonants with 100% accuracy 100% of the time as measured by a teacher-created assessment. So every single day I have a paper inside of their homework folder, and it has all 52 letters, uppercase and lowercase. And when students are able to identify a letter name, they get a check by that letter. If they know the sound, they get a circle by that letter. And so I use that as an assessment tool every single day. And throughout this 7-week period, I have noticed that almost all of my students are identifying their letter names and sounds, which is very exciting. If you look at the data at the end, the data from just today, actually, the dark area here is much smaller. There are only 3 students that are now in the critical area. One of them is a brand new student who has never been in school before, so she's still learning to hold a pencil even, or identify the letter A. She's still she's got a lot of catching up to do. So she's that critical, and then the other 2 students that are in this critical area, they have a lot of attendance issues, so I'm going to start working on that as well. But I have 6 here that are in the approaching, I have 8 that are meeting, and I have 2 that are exceeding the expectations now, which is very exciting. It's showing that the instruction that they're given is working and it's successful. So I wanted to show you a sample of the Chicka Chicka Boom Boom lesson, which was the first lesson that I decided to do. I decided to focus on letter-sound correspondence, and so I read the students Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, and afterwards the students were told to create their own Chicka Chicka Boom Boom tree, and then they were given magazines so that they could go through the magazines and find letters in their name to put on the tree. And those were the only instructions that were given to most of the students. To my lower students, the assignment looks a little bit differently, and I'll show you that in a second. But a higher end student, they would write their name just going across, or some of them were going down, but they found all the letters of their name and they put them together in a row, which also gave me data that they are aware of they have print awareness. A middle average student would just find each of the letters of their name and just glue them wherever they wanted onto the book cover. So this girl's name is Fina, and she has the P-H-I-N and A, and she just glued them wherever, which was also amazing, which was great. And then for the students who are still learning, were still learning to identify their name and identify the letters in their name, I modified their assignments, and so what they were told to do was find letters that they knew. So this specific child, she knows E, and she knows T, and she knows O. And so she found the letters that she knew, and that's what she glued to her tree. And so after doing this lesson, I did another RAPS 360 progress monitoring, and I noticed that my students were making a lot of growth, which is what gave me the information that I needed in order to decide whether to reteach or move on, and I decided to move on. And so I focused on blends and digraphs. And for those 3 students who were in the critical area, I'm doing more one-on-one and small group interventions. But for the whole group lesson that I did, the lesson number 3, it was on physical phonics, which was a program that I found on the internet. So I purchased it and I tried it out, and I was surprised that in such a short amount of time, based on the assessment here, which I'll show you, it's again hard to see because I circled the students' responses with pen, but you can see that this student, for example, her name is Marley, she was able to identify every single blend and digraph. Then this student, Mariana, who is the same student that I have here, who, when we started this, she was only identifying these 5 letters. She has made so much growth that she even identifies most of her blends and digraphs. So I thought it was an awesome amount of progress that was being made. And so I wanted to talk about the importance of small group instruction because it really helps me to work with these students who are quick learners and things that can help advance them, but then it gives me an opportunity to work in a small group with the students who really need extra support. And so that I don't have to reteach a whole entire lesson to a whole entire class that doesn't need it, I can just reteach that lesson or teach it in another way for that smaller amount of students. And I also have learned throughout this whole experience the power of collaboration. I have learned that you can take other people's ideas and use them or build off of them to make your ideas that much stronger. I had so much input from my mentor teacher, who was amazing. I also get input from my coworkers, my colleagues, the other kindergarten teachers. I got that program, the physical phonics, I found that from another teacher on the internet, and it was amazing. And I took it, and I read through it, and I took parts of it and made it my own. And because I was able to collaborate with so many different people on these lessons, I feel like that made my teaching that much better, and it made the experience for my students that much better. Okay, thank you.